Hello and welcome to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz, and in this week's episode, the final for Shocktober, we're investigating the paranormal.
If you enjoy the Now We Know Show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes.
We're actually going to a particular place to investigate paranormal activity, but first we have...
Weird and Wonderful! So for this week's Weird and Wonderful story, I'm sticking with the paranormal.
Oh, the theme of paranormal.
Yes. So, a massive global study shows belief in witchcraft is more abundant than you might think.
Really? Ooh.
Belief in witchcraft is widespread around the world according to a new global study that involves more than 140,000 people, but it's highly variable from place to place.
I wonder how many of them, or those, are witches.
Ooh. Based on the results, about 1 billion people across 95 countries believe in witchcraft, and the study notes that it's most certainly an undercount given the sensitivity of discussing witchcraft for some respondents.
1 billion people. Okay, well, I think we're in about 8.5 billion people on the planet. So,
about 40% of everywhere they basically conducted this study believes in witchcraft. Yes.
Right.
At least of some description.
Okay.
So, this does vary from country to country where they did the studies. So, about 9% of people in Sweden, for example, they believe in witchcraft, whereas 90% of people believe in witchcraft in Tunisia.
Right. Well, I would have thought when it comes to things like witchcraft, supernatural belief, don't want to be stereotypical here, but I think when you live in a first world country, sort of like, you're living in metropolitan London, Birmingham, Manchester, whatever, and you're of a certain ilk, you're probably very much detached from it. But if you're living in maybe more of a rural society, maybe it might be Polynesian islands or
somewhere
like that.
very isolated that has a lot of myths and legends, possibly folklore.
Yeah, folklore. Then maybe you carry it on in your belief system more.
Yeah, I reckon.
Anyway, hey,
what about you?
Witches.
What about you, Buzz? Do you believe in witchcraft?
Well, actually,
let's conduct this study in the booth today.
Well, there you go. I've been asked that before, and yes, I come from a long line of warlocks. Let's just leave it there.
Well, okay. I will ask nothing more of that.
It's not something that I talk about very often. But
I think based upon this, and we have kind of thrown it around in suggestions that a podcast on witchcraft would be really good.
Yes, it would be very good. But I think there's lots of different levels to witchcraft. You've got your darker side, you've got your more sort of herbalist witchcraft. So you've got lots of different kinds of people that look at witchcraft in different ways.
Yeah, I think we were interested in bringing Sarah in to talk about witchcraft.
Yes, well, really Sarah, I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning it, but she considers herself to be a witch, which I'm sure that she is, if that's what she.
But which
follows.
type? That's the question.
That's it. Which type?
So on the topic of witches, this episode we went to
a place that is probably one of the most sort of dark history places of the British Isles. I mean, there are lots of places in the British Isles that are steeped in witchcraft and in paranormal activity, but this particular one is probably up there in the top 10, I would have thought.
Wow!
And it just happens to be on our doorstep.
Yes,
and it's a place that boasts paranormal activity, with sightings of a dark monk, as well as the spectral ladies and even spectral children. And voices and things like that, but also it's a place where satanic rituals were undertaken,
and not that long ago.
Witchcraft and even grave robbing,
which is where we're going to go now.
So here we are at St Mary's Church, Clophill, perched right on top of the hill below the village of Clophill, with the River Flit passing through. Now, we've come here for our paranormal investigation for Shocktober.
Yes, just to round it off, yes.
Yes, just to round it off. Because St Mary's Church has got a huge amount of history behind it when it comes to paranormal activity and also satanic rituals and rites being performed at the church.
Yes, I have heard a little about this, yes.
And so we've come here to see if we can, first of all, see the church itself, see the graveyard, talk about the history of St Mary's, and see if we can also pick up any signs of paranormal activity ourselves while we're here.
Exciting stuff.
Exciting stuff. So to start with, St Mary's Church is around 400 to 600 years old from when it was first established up on the hill, and in later years it became too small for the local parish congregation, so the church was closed, desanctified, and they built a new church down in the village. Now the church over the years became a bit of a ruin, crumbled down, the roof had fallen in, and in time the land and the church was purchased by the local council. However, while it had the period of neglect, that's when an awful lot of strange happenings were reported.
Ooh. Do you know when these occurred?
To answer that question, Zach, the church, when it was abandoned in 1848, as I say, it became derelict, and then over a period of time there have been reports of things like Victorian women, ghost spectral images of Victorian women. I think there's meant to be a dark monk also.
Right.
Actually, I've got friends that have reported strange happenings here as well when they visited.
Oh wow, okay.
In recent years, a friend of ours actually said that when they visited here, they had a very bad feeling when they were actually on the site, and they said that a bush, it was completely calm day, but even so, a bush was sort of shaking and vibrating when none of the other trees or anything.
So unnaturally,
but they could hear the laughter of small children.
Ooh, that is quite spooky.
And this bush was shaking, and as I said, they didn't feel like the feeling they had here, and as they left the main entrance to the church into the lane, and when they looked behind, they could see 3 childlike faces looking out of the church tower at them.
Oh wow.
And the giggling still happened, and they said that's it, they're not coming back. But anyway, so yes, those sorts of things aren't documented as in exact times of when these spectral images have been seen. However, when it comes to the myths of dark magic that purvey the Church of St Mary's, these go back to the 60s in the first reports that I've found. And
right.
There is a very, very early myth, call it a myth because it's not been substantiated, that the church itself of St Mary's was actually built on top of what was a leper and plague colony.
Right.
That hasn't been substantiated, as I say, but it is part of the mythos of St Mary's that it stands upon an old plague and leper pit.
Ooh.
So who knows? But anyway, back in March 1963.
Aha. Yes. Okay. I've got a little bit on that as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
1963. It was reported that during the night, satanic graffiti had been daubed on the church walls, and several graves had been damaged, with the remains removed from the graves, especially of one grave of an apothecary's wife, or some say daughter, whose name is Jenny Humblestone, who died in 1770. And the bones from the grave were found to have been arranged on a makeshift altar, and a skull impaled on a metal spike inside the church.
Oh, geez.
Yes,
That's quite dark.
That is very dark. The press at the time leapt on the supposed arrangements of the remains and stated that it was a dark mass, witchcraft or satanic rituals that had taken place in the church.
Now that is the thing. I have brought with me today a DVD, which is called The Paranormal Diaries, Clophill.
Yes, and I've actually seen this.
And this documentary was actually made in 2013, And on the back, it does say that in March 1963, a black mass was held within the ruins of the church, where we are standing now.
Yes. Well, we're actually in the outside the church itself.
Yes.
We will be moving the podcast into the church.
And around the church, around the graveyard. It's quite an unnatural graveyard, isn't it?
So talking about the graves, the thing is that when it came to the satanic rites and rituals that were held inside the church, as I've already said, Jenny Humblestone's bones had been removed from her grave. And so in order to try and combat this, the local parish moved all the gravestones to the edge of the churchyard. So as we look around...
that is something I've never seen in any other church.
As we stand here and we're looking around, you've got where the boundary wall is, gravestones are all around the boundary wall, so that you have
just along the tree line. Most of them are very overgrown now.
Yeah, covered in ivy. Again, it gives you quite an eerie feeling of abandonment, although the actual site has been tidied up since I was last here, because when I was last here it's had undergone a lot of renovations, which we'll talk about in a while. But we did a little walk when we arrived, didn't we, Zak?
Yes.
We went around the actual perimeter wall looking at the gravestones, and we haven't been able to locate Jenny Humbleside's gravestone.
No.
Its marker. It may be here, but an awful lot of them are almost illegible. You can't really read them.
that is the thing. You can make out names, very simple names, but anything that's been here for, say, hundreds of years, then that's nothing you can make out.
That's right. Well, as I say, they moved the gravestones. However, that was obviously to try and combat this kind of sacrilegious activity. However, prior to them moving the actual gravestones themselves, the coverage from that 1963 report meant that more people came to St Mary's Church to perform more rituals, and that further damage was done to the graves in the churchyard, including another attack on Jenny's grave, which is why inevitably they moved all the gravestones to the outer edge of the graveyard.
Possibly that's why we can't find it. Maybe that one has specifically been moved to somewhere really obscure.
Well, in that second attack, if you want to call it, on Jenny's grave, they couldn't find any bones because the bones hadn't been replaced from the first ritual that had been performed.
So I wonder what happened to them.
Well, what they did is they found an empty coffin, so they proceeded to break up the coffin and scatter that around the ruins instead as part of the rituals. But anyway, this is going to answer that question. Later, Jenny's remains were reinterred in her grave, and at that point it was decided, as I said earlier, to clear the site by removing all the gravestones to the edge of the graveyard.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? You don't want people digging up bodies and things.
Anyway, so that kind of activity then died down until Midsummer's Eve 1969, when again the church and the graveyard were attacked and desecrated.
Wow.
The significance of Midsummer's Eve led to the press to report that the vandalism had been carried out by witches at that point.
Wow. This is crazy stuff, because this is stuff you really wouldn't expect to actually happen.
Outside of watching it on a movie.
It sounds like a movie.
That's right.
For us, this is fairly close to where we're actually based.
That's right. It's right in mid-Bedfordshire, and these are actual happenings and actual satanic rites and witchcraft that were being performed in the ruins.
I wonder to what end. That's the question.
Because of that, the local vicar of the new church down in the village decided to keep a watch over the graveyard. But when nothing happened, after a few nights he gave up, and it was after he left that they attacked again, and this time several graves were disturbed, but no remains were removed on that occasion. Again, things returned to normal for the residents of the parish until 1975, when the graves were again attacked, opened, and bones randomly scattered across the church floor. Although at the time a lot was made about the attacks and the satanic rituals and witchcraft that was being carried out, but since 1979 there's been no further accounts of grave desecration, which means that now St Mary's Church, Clophill, is really the haunt of urban explorers and paranormal investigators.
Just like us.
That's it. And the odd teenager
Oh dear.
was to come up. We've just walked over, in fact, to the actual stonework of the church. Now, as you can, you I don't know, you weren't here too long ago, I think, were you, Zach?
I think it was sometime last year, maybe the year before.
Yeah, but when I last came here, it was still very derelict, and now I can see that what they've done is they've done an awful lot of repointing the stonework. You know, it's all quite fresh across it.
Yes, I can see.
They've maintained the tower. And
Yeah, you can actually go up there now.
yeah, I think what it was is that it was initially proposed that the local council, when they took over the ownership of the site, that because it stands on the Green Sands Ridgewalk, that they were going to renovate the church itself, because you've still got the four walls and the tower.
Yeah, it's just the main roof.
It's the main roof and
that's
windows
missing.
that have gone. So what they were talking about was actually turning into a bothy.
And what's that?
A bothy is somewhere where walkers, you know, you get bothies in Scotland when you're out on the hills. It's somewhere where you can shelter at night.
Oh, is that like mountains?
Yeah.
Mountains.
So they were talking about actually turning the church into a bothy, so that
Interesting.
walkers using the Green Sands Ridgeway could basically stay over.
That's a really cool idea.
However, from what I read about that, is that the funds weren't readily available to go that far.
And I do believe if something like that were to occur here, I think it would be subject to a lot of vandalism, I reckon.
Well, I don't know. I suppose the thing
I
is,
think it's a bit too close to civilization.
I think if you're trying to turn the whole dark side of the history of this site on its head and trying to make it respectable again, trying to sort of dispel and get rid of the darker feeling of what people may feel coming to a site like this, that by doing something like that makes it sort of start afresh,
covering over that dark history,
removing it and saying, look, everything's fine, guys. You know, everything is cool. So anyway, so they didn't manage to turn it into a bothy, but what they have managed to do is to renovate the site. And as you said, they've managed to renovate it, and the tower can now be accessed.
Yeah,
I think you have to. I think it's accessible at certain times of the year, or you have to get permission.
That's it. I think if we go inside later on in the
will.
podcast, then I think there's some signs
We can
find
find out. Now, the other thing from looking at the outward aspect of St Mary's, when we came to the site, I think again to combat that any potential threat of people doing satanic rites and witchcraft and rituals here, they have now put up an awful lot of floodlights and CCTV cameras.
I was actually really surprised when I saw those.
I mean, we're here standing outside the church, and if we look across, you can see through the window, which is missing, the large aspect, that's got CCTV cameras internally as well.
Inside, outside, and there's not just one or two, there are 3, 4, one on every side.
Exactly.
I mean, we're standing around the back right now, and there's one just overlooking by some trees.
So you see here. Well, it's also important to point out that they've got signs up that are saying no overnight. I mean, you're not now allowed to visit the church at night.
Yeah.
After dark, it says no visitors, and the fact that it's security alarmed.
Wow.
So that's why we've chosen to come
during the day.
During the
and
daylight.
That was the thing, because we had originally planned to come up here at night to do a ghost hunt.
Well, that's it, and we still have that plan.
Penned, yes.
Yeah. We were going to come up here with our paranormal specialist, our expert, Mickey Bolden, who's also a spiritualist medium, so he can come and see if he can sense anything.
It'd be great to have him back on the podcast.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure Mickey would come along. But of course, now we've got the thing that we've discovered, that the whole site is covered by CCTV and that it's not allowed to be accessed after dark. So as we're here, and it's probably a couple of hours or so before sunset, I would imagine, but what we've brought along is our EMF detector.
And what does that stand for again?
Electromagnetic field detector.
Right.
Okay, and it is one of the prime tools, if you like, in the arsenal of paranormal investigators. They use a wide range of tools to see if they can pick up any kind of
supernatural
activity, and an EMF reader, it picks up, as I say, magnetic field fluctuations, and supposedly, you know, when you've got a lot of paranormal activity, you get a lot of disturbance within natural electromagnetic fields. So that's what I brought along.
It looks almost like a remote control, doesn't it?
It's sort of like that, with a set of lights. So if, for example, if I just switch it on, there we go, it'll settle down. Okay, so we're just on a green light, which basically means
Minimal to nothing.
Minimal to nothing. Now I'm going to get my mobile phone out of my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to bring that over towards it. And look, now it's shot right up to the red.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is interesting.
So I'm bringing it back again. And there you go. You can see
Wow, I'm picking that up on my headphones.
Yeah, it's going crazy, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Wow, that's really cool.
Now I'm taking my mobile phone away from it. So it's now off. My mobile phone is now off.
Yeah.
And we're back on just the green light.
Yes,
so I think
we don't want to confuse the phone signals with an actual disturbance, do we?
No, not at all. So I think what we should do is perhaps we should take a walk around the perimeter of the church.
Yep.
And just see if we
Just
get any
see.
hot spots, as they call it.
Okay.
So here we are. Let's just go for a walk. So again, we have a lot of restoration on the place. Again, no fluctuations in the electromagnetic fields. And we're
A
at
very nice view.
we've got a beautiful
Overlooking
view
overlooking Bedfordshire.
all the way across out towards.
Is that the sandy transmitter over there?
May well be Sandy transmitter. Yeah, you can
It's
walk
very
all
high.
the way out towards Letchworth, Hitchin, Stevenage from here.
Quite a good vantage point.
Yeah. We're still on the outside. We're not picking up any electromagnetic fluctuations as it is, but we've got a great view now of the inside of the
yeah.
church, viewing the altar and what would be the bell tower. So shall we proceed in?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
It's a very grand aspect, isn't it?
It is. It's an absolutely fantastic ruin, and as I say, it's been very well maintained. I mean, again, when I originally came here, this was just a dirt floor, and there was still a lot of graffiti and rubbish around, and it's been completely restored. We've actually got 2 lengths of grass within the actual church itself, and we're walking down the main aisle towards where the tower is. And we're still not picking up any kind of fluctuations in the electromagnetic fields being in here. Again, I don't know when it comes to paranormal activity whether or not they actually, that changes whether it's at night time or daytime. I kind of feel that it shouldn't really make too much of a difference, apart from people get more kind of, we had a little flicker there, do you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
It is just picking up something. Let's move around here a little.
Okay, so we're moving towards the staircase that leads
is
up the
locked.
tower.
No. Oh, hey.
Wow.
There-
Okay.
There was a big. Now there was no electrical things here.
No, that is actually quite spooky.
Right. So we're just passing across the entrance
Of the bell tower.
of the bell tower. Well,
Secured by Brotherhood Protection Limited.
it's settled down, but there was definitely
There was.
a strong blip there,
It went up to, I think it was almost at the top.
almost at the red.
Yeah.
But it's now settled down to nothing. But that's right at the doorway.
Yeah.
So it's
So this doorway was installed in 2014 by the Clophill Heritage Trust.
as part of the restoration. If we look up above us, you can see straight up.
To where you'd be able to walk if you could book
Yeah.
some kind of
So you've
tour.
got like a steel platform which you can see through. It's like a mesh platform, and then a small spiral staircase that leads right up to the top of the tower itself. That must have some fantastic
Oh,
views.
it's going again.
All right, we're getting another reading here. Let's just step into where I presume the altar would have been. Yeah, it is jumping. It is literally redlining.
What could cause that though? Because we're not near any kind of electronic.
Okay, I've just moved
electronic
away.
things.
I'm moving away from that hotspot. You can see that.
Yeah,
see
just
nothing.
green. It's just green.
Okay, I'm coming back over to this corner. Oh, flicker.
We're definitely going to have to come
Okay,
back
what
here with some
I'm going to
cameras.
ask you, what I'm going to ask you is, can you just step away?
Okay.
You can be an observer.
Yep.
There is definitely...
Yeah, because I'm far away enough from you now, and it's still flickering.
Can't be picking up anything.
I'm at least 5-10 feet away, and it's picking stuff
Hitting the red
up.
line again. Hitting the red line.
In that far left corner.
Yeah. Again, associated around this doorway. I'm coming back to the doorway. And I'm getting readings all around this area.
That is spooky.
There is definitely some electromagnetic fluctuation.
Yeah, because that is not me. That is not me. I have the recording equipment on me.
And you are...
And I am 10-15 feet away now.
Look at that, it's redlining again. Okay, I'm going to move to the opposite side of the altar. I'm extending this out arm's length.
Nothing.
Nothing. Definitely something here.
It definitely seems to be the staircase side.
Staircase side and this back wall. This corner.
That is so spooky.
Okay, we're going to move away from that.
I wonder if it's the same on the outside corner.
We can try everything. What I'd like to do
Yeah.
is... If we move back down the aisle, we can see there, I'm sure that this doorway that's been bricked in led to a lower... we'll go to the outside, but I don't think that this doorway went through. Again, oh, hang on. Again, another doorway. And that was, again, did you see that activity?
I did. It was very brief. It's a brief spike.
What I'd like to do is, there it goes again. So that is another doorway. I wonder if that is...
A hive of activity.
Well, yeah, or just maybe perhaps because it's a doorway, what do people do? They pass through doors, don't they? Perhaps that's why it's got a higher reading. I want to go to the outside, so let's move out of the church. I just want to see if that bricked up door does lead to the outside. And it doesn't.
Oh.
What would seem to be was the remains on this side of another small tower.
Yeah. Do you reckon that led up or down?
Could have done both.
Because it was low. It was very low on the inside.
Yeah, so it looks like we've got another portion of, I would say, a tower leading up. But the doorway to it is bricked off. Yeah,
Now I wonder why that is.
I don't know.
Because there is a window there. There is another bricked up window. It's like
Yep.
halfway up.
Should we try the opposite side of the wall, where the altar is?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're certainly getting heavy readings from the electromagnetic frequency equipment. So we're going to just walk ourselves around, see if we get any reading from the outside of the church. I'm looking up here, I suddenly had an omen moment, but thankfully they don't have a large spiky lightning conductor that can fall off the church.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely catching us on the cameras.
Yeah.
That's when some men in black suddenly come up the hill towards us
Okay, right now
to escort us up the premises.
we're at the opposite side of the altar wall.
Yes.
How thick would you say this wall is? That is a good
7 feet?
6 to 7 feet thick
Yeah.
sandstone. Right, I'm moving right up to the wall. Ooh,
So this is on the outside of the window.
it's the outside, but it's the same corner we got activity inside. I had a little flicker there.
It seems to be actually around the window almost.
Yeah, let's move across. So the staircase to the tower would be the other side of this wall. Not really picking anything up. However, what I would like to do, okay, we'll just move across to the opposite side. Again, I've got a slight flicker there. See, I'm not a great believer. There is this, I can't think off the top of my head what it was called. It's kind of like stone recording. Have you remember that?
Yes, I remember it.
Where
yes.
some paranormal investigators have a theory that paranormal activity can be sort of recorded and locked into
Imprinted, yeah.
imprinted into stonework itself. Oh, I'm getting a flutter here.
Wow, that's going all the way up to red.
Up into red again.
And I mean, that is pure stone. There is nothing.
There's no electrical cabling or metal work around here. Right. So we're getting a few from, again, the opposite side of the altar.
Mm.
A lot of graffiti on this wall as well, by the way.
Yes, that's what I said earlier.
Yeah. Now, what I don't know about St Mary's is whether or not there's a crypt. I would have imagined when this was built, especially being up on the top of a hill, where the water table would shed away, it would be perfectly feasible that there could well have been a crypt under this church. And I would have thought perhaps that bricked up door that went into what looked like a half-round tower on the outside may well have led downwards.
As well, yeah.
I don't think that tower's big enough for a staircase.
Right.
So I'm kind of wondering whether that was built out to allow to go down.
Ooh.
But there could well be a crypt under here.
Under our feet as we speak.
What I'd like to do is to go back into the church,
Yep.
back into the altar, one final time, and just see if we can get these EMF readings again in the same area.
Yeah. Do you want to just scan this front as we walk round?
So again, we have some window work. We've got CCTV cameras high on the wall.
In numerous quantities.
Yep. But they're 20, 25 feet away from us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect to get any kind of reaction. I've used this equipment for some time, and I've also tested the equipment on just the electromagnetic fields of household goods.
Yeah.
And you get a reading of maybe 3 lights if you take it to the back of a fridge freezer where the pump's running. It goes absolutely crazy if you put your microwave on, but you've got to be right up close to them. So I would not expect to get any kind of reading at this distance from any of the CCTV cameras. Just they're too far away and too small.
Right.
Anyway, let's just go down through the main entrance. It'd be interesting if we get anything on the actual entrance into the church itself, because this would have been the main entrance, I would imagine.
Yes. Let's take it slow, nice and slow.
Okay. Nope. Now we go back into the altar. Let's go back to that hot spot we found.
And it's back again.
Yeah, it's back again. Definitely in this area. There's something in this area which is really pushing out a signal. Look at that go.
Wow, that's going all the way up to red.
Let's see if I can catch. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, hold it right there, right there.
That's crazy.
I really have no idea why that would be spiking so prolifically. Because it's not our phones, it's not the recording equipment. I'm standing well away from the EMF detector.
That is a massively strong signal we get. I'm backing away from it now and the signal's gone. So there's definitely something happening in this area. Right, I'm going to shut down on the EMF reader now. That's off. Wow, what a fantastic experience.
Yeah, this...
How does it make you feel being here?
Well, what I've noticed is the fact that when we arrived, it was fairly still, the day. It was very still. It was nice, bright, sunny. But now we've stayed here for, about half an hour, maybe more. And the wind has picked up. And it's getting a bit more cloudy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of giving this ominous feel to it.
Well, I'll say, prior to being here today, it was a lot more... it gave you a lot more of a dark, depressed feeling when you were at this, because it was a ruin. And that would have been, I don't know, 25 years ago, probably, when I visited at that time.
Wow.
I actually say, because of the renovations, it feels far more uplifted.
I have just spotted something on the wall that I have no idea what it is.
Ooh, that is a photograph in the making. And that is what is known.
It's like a red, a circle. It looks like a shield almost.
Yeah, but that is what's known in the trade as a witch mark, or it very much resembles a witch mark.
It's very large.
Now, witch marks are traditionally put on the outside of buildings near entrances to ward off witchcraft.
There's another one under this window as well. The same pattern again.
Okay.
And this strange red pattern, it has obviously been there for a good while. That has a lot of age to it.
Well, again, there's been restoration done. You can see some scoring marks across here from, I'd say that's modern renovation equipment. They're working on the plaster.
But what would give those marks that red look?
Well, that would be. Sorry, I just got disturbed by a little knock sound in the corner there near the doorway. Red ochre, perhaps some kind of mixed into the plaster work. I don't know though if this is original plaster work. To be honest, I
mean, even this plaster work, as you say, it has still been here for a good while. And you're saying there was a lot of activity here throughout the 1900s.
I'm just going to go back to the EMF reader again so that it's settled down. Let's just go up to this.
So even the last 20, 50 years, this could possibly have been here. Because that is not new.
I'm not getting any readings from these, but the concentric patterns on that is very reminiscent to, as I say, a witch mark. So whether these were originally here or have been put here as part of later ritual or some ritualistic kind of undertaking, but you have two on this wall.
So a witch mark, is that to what is that actually for?
Traditionally they're used to ward off witchcraft.
Right. Okay.
But
so possibly it was put there by somebody who was against this satanic ritualistic behaviour.
And trying to deter it.
Mm.
Very possibly.
I mean, by the modern eye, to deter such things, it would be the cameras. It would be nobody is allowed on site.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have had those back in the
Precisely.
60s and the 70s. It's very interesting that these marks are there, but they're not evident anywhere else.
Mm.
Yet, that is so pronounced, but I don't recall seeing it when I was here all those years ago. But it could have been covered up, you know.
It has obviously been there for a good while.
But there doesn't seem to be any other kind of plaster work, ornamentation.
No, that's the thing. It seems so, like, deliberate.
Interesting. We'll have to take that away with us and see if we can do a bit of research.
Well, I mean, there is two, about
identical.
20 feet, one under the window, one on the right side wall. You'll be able to see it as you come in through the main entrance.
I will say the one under the window, it's slightly off kilter, isn't it?
Yeah.
You think that somebody would, whether it's brushed or not, I don't know.
Well, it's weird because it looks like it should continue up to where the window is, but obviously they've done some renovation work, and it's kind of like
the
one
window,
quarter of the circle is kind of cut off.
The window level is reduced. Well spotted. As I say, this particular property is now owned by the local council and it's desanctified, so it's not a religious site at all, which is probably what brought people in here, is to make it that perfect place to undertake rituals.
Oh, I can see I assume that's a modern cross.
Yeah, somebody's
on the church tower.
And it says, you've got a plaque next to it saying, "To the glory of God." So that wasn't there in the early days either. Right, well that's our initial visit to St Mary's Church.
Yes, I think it's definitely worth another visit.
Yeah, I think we've got some interesting readings. I don't know what that pertains to exactly. But we went to the area in the altar, in the church tower, and got
Yes.
those readings.
Yes.
We moved away.
Yep.
We went back and got the same readings. We've been to the outside as well as the inside. There are no electrical cables or anything that are evident that are in that area. That's quite an unusual thing. And then you spotting those, for want of a better word, witch marks that are on the interior wall of the church as well.
And that will be the thing. If we come back, do the same test again for this EMF detector and see if it again
We get the same
spikes
readings.
up.
And next time, we bring Mickey Bolden.
Yes. We're going to have a little discussion on that as to how we're going to manage that
Well,
due to the fact that we're not supposedly allowed here at night.
Well, I think therefore a visit either pre-sunset or sunrise.
Yeah, like as we are now.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyway, that's St Mary's Church. That's a little bit of history. Probably one of the most darkest kind of backstories of any place I know of
Yeah.
in Bedfordshire at least.
Well, that's the thing. We did Hertfordshire folklore and things like that, and we've visited a few different sites for our folklore episodes. And in that, I can't say that I felt as unnerved
As
by
being
any
here.
other place.
I think that maybe has something to do with the fact that when we've looked at other folklore stories, they are myths, they are legends, they are folklore. What we have here is somewhere where things actually happened. Bones were taken from graves, skulls were put on metal spikes, concentric patterns using the bones were put on the altar and on a makeshift altar and on the floor, as well as satanic symbolism, graffiti on the walls of the church. This happened, and more than once.
Not long ago.
Not long ago.
It has a history, but it also has
And it makes me
quite
wonder,
a modern history as well.
Yeah, well, it makes me wonder if you have those people in the 60s and in the 70s that were maybe from covens, those covens could still exist.
Yeah, there's nothing to say they wouldn't.
You know, it might not have just been individual people just off the cuff. We might be talking about covens that still exist and continue onwards to this day.
Well, that's the thing. Looking back to the cameras, what other ruins of a church have you seen actual active cameras?
This is so heavily daubed
Alarmed.
with cameras and with lights that it does also make you think they really are trying to keep people away.
There's police signs on the gateway to the tower. Looking back to that big entranceway, overlooking Bedfordshire, you've got two cameras either end. One is very disguised, the other looks more modern.
And right above us, again, we've got a huge spotlight to light up the main church area.
And you think if nobody's allowed here at night, why would they need a spotlight?
That's to see what's happening within the church itself. And as we come outside the church, again, on the far side, cameras. This, just under the front entrance here, we have got 3 cameras which are no more than probably 5 foot apart from each other.
And I mean, if this was any other ruin, there wouldn't be any cameras on it.
No.
Why would there be so many cameras on it?
I think
Unless somebody was actively trying to monitor such things from happening.
I think that really what we've got here is a very active hotspot where the need to deter people is incredibly strong.
Yeah.
And that it's basically bringing this podcast to an end with more questions than we can answer. You know, it's thrown up more questions. You know, very, very strange.
Just looking to this window over here on the outside.
Yep.
There's
Somebody's
a cross.
Somebody's inscribed. Now that's quite a modern feature, I would have thought, because
Yeah.
that looks like the stone itself has been renovated, and that somebody, because that's quite. Let me take a photograph of it. We can put up. But that's kind of you can tell somebody scratched that in, I believe. That's not a... I mean, that's how the stone should look. If we look to our left, you see this modern stone has been put in.
Oh, right.
That's what it should look like. And that's lovely. That's stonemason's work at best. I'll take it there.
So do you reckon that's
And
like
on this side,
a gradual thing that is slowly built up over time? Because that looks very
new.
very new.
Yeah, this is the part of the renovations where they put the new stonework in.
Yeah.
That is part of the old stonework, which is obviously worn away. But that cross would never have been on the surface. Yeah, because the surface of the stonework would have been carved like that.
Yeah.
But because it's flat, somebody's scratched that in. So somebody's actually physically come here and scratched that in, which is very, very interesting.
Now, to me, I think one of the spookiest parts of this visit is those witch marks, because
Witch marks, yeah.
I can't recall seeing those before.
But
But they look like they have been there for ages, years.
we're going to go back, and I'm going to see if I can research that pattern, because we actually have a witch mark on our cottage.
Right.
Yeah, I've shown that to you before.
Yeah.
And the witch mark on our cottage, which is on the back of the cottage, which would have been that we've got an extension on the cottage. Thankfully, the extension didn't cover up or damage the witch mark. But the witch mark is there right next to what would have been the entrance into the kitchen. And most people would have been in and out. Back in the day when our cottages were built, back in these 1890s, they had out houses, so the toilet and wash house was outside in the garden area. So you would have been using that as your main entrance to come in and out. And a witch mark, as I say, is there to protect the house, to prevent witchcraft, evil spirits getting into the house. And this is very interesting because these
it's
two
on the
marks,
inside.
these two marks are on the inside rather than the outside.
It's like trying to box something in.
I don't know. But anyway, very, very fascinating. So we've had some positive EMF readings, discovery of witch marks, and overall, as I say, it's thrown up more questions than answers. I think it's time we should head back to the studio, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. So here we are, back in the studio, back in the dungeon studio after our adventure out there.
I found that really, really interesting.
Well, I felt kind of... I don't consider myself to be in tune, like,
With these things
with these things
as much,
other people would put forward.
But that's something we can work on going forward.
But, I have to say that we did take an EMF reader with us, which was like the electromagnetic frequency reader, and we did pick up a hotspot within the church, within the grounds, and we were methodic with it. We moved away from it. We came back to it. We went away from it. Came back to it. Tried lots of different things. Made sure that we had no electronic equipment near us, and we kept getting the same hotspot in that area. Well, that's got to say something. I don't know what was sending out that.
Well, I think it's definitely worthy of future investigation.
Yeah. But what I will say is, while we were there, we didn't see the black monk.
No.
We hadn't seen any spectral ladies or any giggling children, for that matter. Just saw one lady having a sandwich.
They were wandering around
Who wasn't.
slightly ominously.
Yeah. There was one lady who was sort of lurking around in the background. She wasn't wearing Victorian clothes.
Maybe it was a really convincing ghost.
Could have been. I mean, she was there, and she was sitting in the window at one point, eating a sandwich, as I say. And then she disappeared.
Yeah. I think overall...
I think she disappeared in a car, but there you go.
Overall, the prevailing thing about it was that the area was obviously highly under surveillance.
Yeah, I mean, really heavily.
And I was really taken back by that because it seems
it
seems very out of the way.
Yeah, I don't even see industrial estates that are under that much surveillance.
No, it's got cameras every wall,
everywhere.
Floodlights, alarm systems, and I'm like,
signs everywhere.
Do not come here at night. It is alarmed.
Otherwise, the men in black are going to come storming.
Police, and it had these signs up for like a brotherhood.
Yeah, the kind of security
team.
I don't know whether that's from something to do with the.
Maybe it's a front. It's a front for the occultists
church or something.
Or the occultists.
It could be one or the other. Yeah, I mean, I was also fascinated with the big. All I can describe them as witch marks. that were inside the
Yes,
church.
yes.
I've got a lot of material on witch marks, as a particular subject that I'm interested in, and I've found some medieval witch marks which looked very, very similar, apart from the witch marks in the church were contained in one circle. Obviously these were scratched out using a mason's compass,
Right.
but in the medieval ones that I had that were literally identical, the intersecting circles within the circle extended beyond the outer circle.
Oh.
But saying that, the pattern is exactly the same. So
Wow.
whether they are simply medieval graffiti that it was there under the plaster, I kind of think that they should have been seen, because you did have that kind of red ochre colour in portions of them.
And they'd obviously been there for a good while.
Yeah, so I'm kind of I've done it as much. I've really looked it up to see if there was any kind of references for those marks at St Mary's Church. I can't find a single thing about that.
Wow. Okay.
And apart from that, I'd say the EMF reader was certainly kicking off in a couple of areas, and especially within the altar area. So there was one thing that you spotted in the altar area, which you spotted after we finished recording, just as we were leaving, and that was in the same area as we were getting the EMF readings. There was a slight crack in the wall, and somebody had put some rose hips
Yeah, so it was like a
into
plant,
the wall.
a planty type
so
thing.
they've gone to a rose hip. I mean, I'm sure people know what rose hip is. This time of the year, they're laden in their fruit, and they've taken a stem off with the fruit on and pushed it into the crack.
And this was a very deliberate thing.
Yeah, because it was high on the wall, so you would have to be an adult to push it into the crack, and it was just hanging there. So it wasn't something that had grown out the wall. It's obviously pushed into there. I don't know whether that had any meaning, but we were trying to think, why would somebody
Do that.
walk into the church, go into the altar area? They've obviously got the rose hip, carried it in there, because there's no rose hip that is growing immediately around the church, and they've put it into that crack to dangle down.
It's a very deliberate thing.
Yeah, I mean...
And there is no way that could be a coincidence, because it was in the same area that we picked up the EMF readings. It was in the same area as the altar,
I would say that,
which is where the rituals took place.
I would say the crack was off centre, because it was pretty much the only crack in the masonry that you could use to put something in, and it was just there. And now you might think that's just a random thing, but I felt personally, and I think you agree, that it felt like there was more purpose behind it.
Indeed, which is why I looked up rose hips and their magical uses.
Oh, what, within witchcraft?
Yes, within witchcraft. So they do have a very wide range of purposes, supposedly, in witchcraft, including luck, good fortune, love, health, self-love, beauty, peace, anti-nightmare, which I thought was a pretty cool one, protection, money, prosperity, confidence, family and friendship, divination, truth and charms.
Well, there you go. So I think out of those, if somebody had a motive to put that there for a specific reason, I would either say that it was there for some kind of protection, or, like you say, anti-nightmare, to repel, bad spirits, or
well, I think possibly, could it be a connection to the actual witch marks, because that was on a separate wall to them, and it kind of, maybe it's to keep something evil inside
rather than out.
Yeah, because it's weird that a witch mark would be on the inside of a building.
Yes, because normally, as I said in the podcast, they're normally next to the entrance.
Would it be to contain something within this area, if there was this this ritual taking place?
Only guess. Okay. Again, obviously, for the listeners out there, you've listened to the podcast, and I did mention that I've been there years ago when the place was very much derelict, and it just had the mud floor, and it looked like it looked hideous at the time. It was dark. It was so perhaps you're on the right kind of. Any explanation is possible, but yeah, I think if you've got to put yourself into the perspective of, I'm an adult, I've purposefully gone to a bush that is nowhere near the church, brought in that, pushed it into the crack in the altar, nowhere else in the church, gone to the altar. There's got to be some kind of meaning. What that meaning is, I don't know, but
Otherwise, that is a massive coincidence.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, why would somebody randomly do?
Precisely.
Why would somebody just randomly go in there? They could have stuck a daffodil in there or something.
Yeah, anything.
Wrong time of the year for that, but you know what I mean. Or some oak.
Yeah, I think there were some mushrooms around.
Some acorns or something. But you know, there was purpose behind that.
Yeah.
What that was, I don't know. But there you go. But it was a fascinating trip all the same.
And I think we should definitely go back maybe in the years to come.
Again, I'd love to take Mickey, because Mickey is our paranormal specialist. He's our expert on that. He is a spiritual medium. So, you know,
it'd be good to see if he can
pick up
tune in to anything.
And I'd also like to go back and take a radio so we can maybe listen to some white noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see if there's anything on the white noise.
Maybe conduct some other kind of tests.
I mean, it's awkward because obviously they are hot to trot on anybody going up there at night.
Yeah.
Which
kind of puts a bit of a kind of prevention on that investigatory
well, they
side.
obviously do want to prevent people going up there at night.
For what reason?
Well, for obvious reasons.
For what reasons?
Because
we
of
don't
the
know.
satanic kind of witchcraft, grave robbing
past.
But
is it still a thing? Because looking at all the signs and stuff up there,
I think
there was no reference to any of this stuff happening. It's like they're trying to cover it up.
There was one line on the main board at the entrance that said, and it said, you know, vandalism.
That was it.
But you know, that I think basically they're trying to steer away from anybody.
Any reference.
Probably want people to forget about the darker side of St Mary's Church.
But that's what makes it so.
Yeah, but
unique.
That's the thing.
That makes it.
But that's also a magnet for people to go there. Yeah, for maybe the right or the wrong reasons, you know. But who knows? But there must have been a time when they didn't have those signs up there.
True.
Because we did mention in the podcast, the live recording, about a film.
Yes, Paranormal Diaries, Clophill.
Yeah, and we spotted that some time ago, didn't we?
I think I literally just picked it up from a shop somewhere.
But it actually is down. I think it's on IMDb, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a proper film that was made up.
You can probably find it on some streaming services.
What was the name of the director?
Michael G. Bartlett.
Right.
And this film came out in 2013. So that's not that long ago. 10 years ago.
10 years ago. So at that time, when they filmed it, I don't know whether they had permission or not.
It was filmed there. It was filmed there.
But it's bizarre because it's kind of like... It starts off... And I was interested in watching the movie because I felt it was a documentary on the paranormal that basically encompasses St Mary's Church. And it kind of starts off like a documentary.
Yeah.
And do I recall, I think it was, they had the Bedfordshire ghost hunters kind of club. I don't know, some kind of society, ghost hunting society from Bedford.
Yeah, it was a while since I've watched it.
And they had a table set up there and they were using the EMF.
Doing all these tests. I think they did, I think it was like 5 minutes just walking around the grounds alone.
They would send one person off with a walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
And
see if anything weird happens.
And it was kind of, you know, an investigation that was obviously
for the most part.
Filmed at night. But then... it suddenly went downhill towards the end because I think they wanted to go for a bit of sensationalism in this particular film stroke documentary, because all of a sudden they all saw, what's that noise? What's happening? Look, can you see those lights? And then it cut to a sequence where we had white-robed figures with torches. I'm talking about flaming torches. Heading
in a procession.
In a procession through the woods. And then it's like, come on, let's go and look.
Yeah.
And they were in the woods. There aren't any woods right next to the church.
Not right next to it.
No, there are woods up there, but no, there's a lane with a couple of bushes.
Yeah. You know. It almost felt like a found footage thing in the end,
it
didn't
looked
it?
like they just... Hey, this would be a good idea to round it off with a bit of sensationalism.
Yeah, I think it's like this footage was found on the people who made it never.
Yeah, and it kind of went a bit Blair Witchy at the end.
Yeah, that was very much. That was, yeah.
Oh no, they've seen us! Ah!
Yeah,
and it was
that's
like, hang on a minute, guys. I watched this, and at the beginning, I'm taking this seriously as a documentary.
I've watched this for the first 45 minutes, believing everything that's going on here.
And then you get to the end, and you go, did they just make all that up anyway?
Yeah.
You know, was it just a load of BS?
I think they should have stuck with the documentary style.
They should have stuck with the documentary style.
Instead of going into the fictitious at the end.
Yeah, that just sort of like spoilt what they'd tried to achieve in the first instance.
Yeah.
But saying that, it is a film.
And it's a very low budget film.
Low budget film, but I think for anybody interested in
the mythology.
The mythology and paranormal and St Mary's Church.
Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, give it a watch. I don't think...
Don't expect it to be like the next big thing or anything, but yeah, it was interesting.
I would say if you're interested in watching these sort of ghost hunting, paranormal programs that they have, that you can streaming channels and all sorts of things.
Blaze or something.
Then give it a go. But overall, to round off Shocktober, I think that it was a really interesting experience to go up there.
Yeah.
It is an absolutely beautiful place to visit anyway. I mean, the views out across Bedfordshire from the church.
Amazing.
Especially if you got the option for the access up to the top of the tower.
Yeah.
As I'm in the studio pointing my finger in the air that nobody can see. If you can get up there, you must have an absolutely amazing view. Because you probably then view out the opposite direction.
And of course, it is part of the Green Sands Ridge Walk.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
And in a way, it's a shame they didn't turn it into a bothy for people to stay in, but there you go.
Yeah, well, I think that could have caused a lot of...
Oh no, satanic rituals.
Satanic rituals.
Yes, people in the bothy suddenly disappearing.
Okay, so retrospectively, Shocktober.
Yep.
What has been your favourite episode to record? Was it The Exorcist, Jersey Devil, horror movies to watch this Halloween, or this one?
To be honest to everybody and all the special guests that we've had in, I would say a bit of everything.
Bit of everything?
Bit of everything, because nothing, it's all been outstanding. It's all been thoroughly enjoyable, a fantastic experience. And the nature of the Now We Know show is that we learn things.
Yeah.
And for all those episodes, I learnt about the Jersey Devil. I learnt about movies that I might want to watch at Halloween that I've not heard of before. We basically covered all sorts of things. That was a learning experience for me, learning experience for you, and hopefully...
I've certainly gained more of an appreciation for The Exorcist as a movie.
Yeah. That's. I mean, for me, it was throwing up a lot of old memories from back in the day because you watch movies like The Exorcist and you watch them when they come out, which is obviously in the 70s, and I saw them in the late 70s, and then you don't necessarily revisit them. Sometimes they come up on the TV,
but it's always cut.
Always cut. So kind of like these days, it's like, I'm not watching that because there's no point. I know they're going to cut it. So yeah, it's great. The whole Shocktober this year has been an adventure, a journey into everything Halloween.
I think it's definitely given us some ideas for next year.
Yeah. In fact, I think you're off pumpkin carving later this week, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Have you got any Halloween plans?
I think it's a Tuesday, is it not?
It is. It is
Tuesday. So I'm not at the gym, so maybe I'll refer to the list of movies that have been recommended and see if there's something there that
takes your fancy.
I know on Halloween. Are you actually carving pumpkins on Halloween? Or
No, we're doing it on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, you're off down at the Shepperton Studios on a film job on Halloween morning, I believe.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Maybe we can get together on Halloween night. We're going to have a good traditional Halloween scary movie.
So it's that time of the podcast where we dive into the Hat of Mystery to pick out the next subject for our Now We Know Show flashbacks, which are exclusive episodes for our patrons and YouTube members.
Out comes Sherlock Holmes' Deer Stalker. Who's going to choose this week?
Oh, I think it's going to be me.
Okay, well, I am holding the hat.
That does make sense. It might be a little tricky to hold a Deer Stalker with one hand.
Okay, what have you pulled out?
What have I pulled out? Oh, okay. Interesting. This might kind of segue into a topic of another podcast that we're going to be doing in November, hopefully.
Excellent.
So this is flashing back all the way to episode 4.
Episode 4?
Episode 4.
Wow, that seems like
we just recorded episode 73.
Episode 4, I can't even remember that far back.
Beer.
Oh, beer. In fact, yes, I remember good old Chaz commenting not so long ago about he thought that was a really funny episode because you started to have beer for the first time and got a little bit tiddly in the podcast.
Got to save it.
We're going to have to go over
save
that.
Save it for the flashback.
But listeners, if you haven't listened to number 4, go listen to number 4.
And that's it. We're going to plan to do some kind of wine tasting in November.
Yeah. We've got wine tasting down on the list with special guests coming in. And of course, as we get towards the festive season, I think the Scotch tasting is going to come
Scotch tasting, wow.
Yes.
Crikey. It's a rather exciting next few months. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We shall see you soon.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
That's a spooky Halloween goodbye from Buzz.
And that's a ghouly goodbye from Zak.
Goodbye.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes.